What's going on, people? What it do? What it do? It's your boy, SportsRap CEO, and coming up on the next episode of the SportsRap podcast later on today, just a few minutes, as a matter of fact. We'll talk some NBA tanking, talk about that WNBA CBA, and we're gonna start getting prepared for March Madness because we're already in March. But March Madness is coming up. Stay tuned. Instagram and TikTok at SportsRap CEO coming at you in a matter of minutes. Peace. Good afternoon, good people. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. It is Monday, March the 2nd. First episode of the month. Got some stuff to talk to y'all about today. I hope everybody's having a good March. I hope everybody is finding a way to deal with this crazy weather that we are experiencing right now. Right before I came on, I just saw an alert. It's talking about a winter storm watch or whatever for tomorrow morning between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. So just be careful. Pay attention to the news. He said the snow's going to be a mix of snow and rain. Less than an inch of snow, so it's not really anything to be concerned with on the snow side. But as far as the rain and the temperature, there could be some freezing, some light, slippery spots. So you got to be out that time of morning. Just be careful. Take your time. Get there. If your boss tell you something, when you get there late, just tell them, look, it's traffic. Well, you wanted me to get here so I can do this work. So I had to take my time to get here. But nonetheless, we know what a lot of talk has been going on. Two of our major sports leagues, brother, sister, WNBA, NBA. WNBA, we know about the ongoing collective bargaining agreement talks. We know in the NBA, we now are hearing that there's going to be some serious action taken upon teams tanking. So today we're going to talk a little bit about both. And we talked about tanking before, but I think it's now to the point where, as you know, so far this season, a couple teams have been fined for some things that they have done, angling or, alluding to tanking. Some teams have made some trades. Some other teams made some trades who you thought might have been tanking, but with the trades that they made, they might be thinking just a rebuild, not so much of a tank and rebuild, because there is a little bit of a difference. But nonetheless, we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA tank and what the commissioner intends to do about it or has plans on intending to do something about it. And we're going to talk about what some of those plans are. Then I also have another article where it breaks down how some things could happen and also alludes to tanking not being the major problem with the NBA. So, again, we can start right there. People, you know where I am. All right, at SportsRap CEO on TikTok and TikTok and Instagram right now. Make sure you join there. Make sure you tap in. You know what I do. Y'all know we have a good time. So just tap on in, and I'll acknowledge y'all when I see y'all. Make sure. Feel free to leave comments too. Ask me questions while we're here about some things that I say or some questions you might want to ask about the topics that you think I might have an answer to, whatever. But let's have some fun with it. But I basically, I want to have some fun with it like always, but I also want to give you guys some information and some information that you normally won't get on mainstream media. So I like to dig deep, a little bit deeper, go behind the scenes. And like I always say, I give you some of that business side and some of that fan side and some of that fun side, right? So let's get to it. So again, we know about the NBA's tanking issue. Tanking has been going on since forever, right? My own beloved Sixers were in it at one time. If they had to rank teams that have been tanking since tanking has been become so prominent, I'm sure my Sixers, unfortunately, will be right up in the top, or at the top of that list. And this is all going back to Sam Hinkie and this, and how we got those 2 number 1 draft picks, and all of that stuff. And look where we are now. Right. But again, like I tell you all the time, I got my Sixers hat on. I'm in support. I am not jumping ship. Okay. I just have to be straight up honest with you guys to keep my integrity for what I do. Right. So anyway, again, if there was a list, you had to go compile a list on teams that had tanked and did it, if you will, very well, or if you did, or whatever you want to say. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure my Sixers would be at the top of that list. If not number 1, they're like 2, 3, no lower than 4. Right? I can give you that, no lower than 4. Maybe not even no lower than 3. Anyway, so now this year we heard about the Utah Jazz and their tanking situation. They were fined. There was another team that was fined. I can't remember who the other team was right off the top of my head, but nonetheless, there were a couple teams that were fined this year for tanking. And during All-Star Weekend, Commissioner Adam Silver has decided that there is going to be some penalties handed down. So the other teams were Dallas and Memphis. All right, they were noted for losing intentional games, and then Utah was highlighted for aggressive late season tanking. Right. So the key aspects of the situation, the tanking situation that I found, and I think these are some really interesting points, if you will, about, hey, Larry Sanders, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you are consistent now for the last couple of weeks. I definitely appreciate it. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend as well. All right, so again, key aspects of the tanking issue this year, 2026. All right, let's go. Let's get to it. All right, the loaded draft. All right, so people are speculating and saying that the 2026 draft is considered one of the most talented since 2003. All right, with at least 3 potential number 1 prospects. I have been hearing that. I can't deny that. I have been hearing that this draft is expected to be loaded with talent. Just this is the first time I've heard it actually compared to any other draft. But I have been hearing that this draft is going to be loaded with talent. So that's one point of the tanking. The second one is extreme tanking tactics. So teams are intentionally losing sitting players like Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. for fourth quarters and trading healthy players for injured ones. So you know what that does, right? Like, so they said teams like the Utah Jazz, and this is why they got fined. They made a trade to get Jaren Jackson, right? But what they did was they sit them in the fourth quarter. So you're playing guys that don't normally play, guys that don't normally fit into your game closing scheme, guys that don't really know yet how to close out games in the NBA as of yet because of their short playing time. And then some teams are trading players for injured players because they get these players that are injured, then they can't play. Then you have less bodies to play. Like they give you the lowest you can have suited up, I think, is 8 players. So teams trade for injured players so they don't have to play them. And in a sense, they lose games through that way. All right. Systemic issues. The lottery reform meant to curb tanking has actually led to perpetual tanking for some teams as they struggle to secure high picks. We all know, and it's becoming an issue in the NFL now as well. But since we're in the NBA, and we're talking NBA right now, like it means teams now are looking to continue to tank year after year to continuously get lottery picks or very high, if they can, draft picks. All right. Proposed fixes. The league is considering drastic measures, including limiting consecutive top 4 picks, locking lottery odds at the trade deadline, or assigning lottery odds based on 2-year records. So let's talk about this. Let's go in reverse. On basing it on assigning lottery odds based on 2-year records. In a way, that could keep some teams up in that high level, and then they have that record, and then you kind of, for lack of a better phrase, punish them and not give them a consecutive top 4 pick. Limiting teams to consecutive top 4 picks, I can understand that a little bit, but again, you have some other parts of this that could lead you to that, and just because you're basing it on the 2-year record. And then locking lottery odds at the trade deadline. Now that one, I think could work, because you may have some teams, and I mean, they might shock some teams, but you may have some teams that would do this, that would make some trades thinking that something might help them along the way. And then you would have some teams that would back out because now they know once the trade deadline hits, our lottery odds are what they are. They're not going to get any better no matter what we do. So then you may have teams that may stand pat at the trade deadline. You may not see as many trades as you have seen in the past, or as many as you might think, given any particular season. So some of those things could work. But again, like I said, you could kind of take something from someone and then put them back in position of one of the rules that you didn't want them to be in. And then how do you fix that? So like the biggest issue is really, and that's like the main question, can tanking be fixed? Matter of fact, how can tanking be fixed? Or better yet, can even be fixed? Is like the biggest overall question, right? Small market strategy. Despite criticism, tanking remains the most viable path to acquiring superstars for small market teams that cannot rely on free agency. That, to me, is somewhat more so, like, for my opinion, it's more so of a demographic, I think. Because, like I said, it's a low market team. Stars don't want to be in low markets. They want to be in big market cities. They want to be able to be seen on TV. They want to have the ability to get income off of the basketball court, right? Which is a lot easier in big markets and bigger cities than it is in the low markets or the small market cities, right? So yes, it's tough for them, and it's even tougher because they could possibly have revenue issues, things of that nature. Now, when you think about it, it can change if it's done right. Take a look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Definitely a small market team. Built that team through the draft. And surprisingly, they made this run and won the championship last season. They're the reigning NBA champs. And they still have a lot of very good, I'm not going to say high, but a lot of very good draft picks. So, like, they're like sitting at the top of the NBA world. And they're sitting very pretty. Because teams will talk to them every trade deadline about those assets. Because they've seen what they built with the assets they've had and that they still have. So a lot of teams now will try to take that model and try to build their own. So that one point there where it says make your odds locked at the trade deadline, it becomes difficult for teams to trade now because, like you said, it makes teams think on the back burner, like, look, we could make this trade and get A, B, and C, player A, B, and C, or A and B, or just A. But whatever our odds are right now, that's what they're going to be come draft. So, like, For example, if it's a star and the star has some contract left, why take on a contract and possibly have to go through struggle with free agency with that star when you really wouldn't have to, because your odds aren't going to change? Why would teams now go through? The only thing I could see teams possibly sticking with at that point would be expiring contracts. But then that would have to make them very, very aggressive in the free agent market once the trade deadline hits, the buyout as well, the buyout market and the free agent market. But I think that's something that teams would look at and teams would think about. Because, again, like I said, if our odds are going to be what they are, why would I make this trade to get rid of some young assets when I can stay pat, keep my odds where they are again, let these guys play, doesn't really matter. Let them play a little bit down the stretch. Once we know we're eliminated from playoff contention, let them play a little bit down the stretch, get some time under their belts, and then come back in the next training camp with some experienced players and young players, and they can grow together. Again, I'll say it. Look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I started that with the low market cities that stars really don't want to go to. But OKC has created their own stars. Or those stars have created themselves in OKC. And they've had the chance to grow together. And they're all young. And they can still grow. Teams will begin now. If these things that Adam Silver is planning to put in place, just to say hypothetically, were to go through and be put in place, teams would definitely be extremely more strategic around the trade deadline. Because again, like I said, it would have to be deals that would kind of like blow you away, like an offer you couldn't refuse in order for you to make a deal, especially for like these teams that are like fighting or these teams that know that they have lottery chances. And depending on where you are at the trade deadline, and if it locks, again, like I said, there's no chance of you moving up. So you can't tank and lose games. If you win games or lose games, you're still going to be in the same position. So like teams will kind of be able to estimate where they might be picking in the lottery at that particular point. So some of those trades would be like, it would be good if this wasn't in place. But now that this is in place, do we really want to do that? It's not going to help us any. And then we'll be fighting again next year. So, something to think about. Right? Something to think about. So, second article I got, and I got some information from this, Again, like I said, I'm going to go through these again for you. And there's a couple more in here. These are the things that are allegedly being proposed for penalties concerning concerning tanking and their issues and trying to fix tanking. All right. So it says first round draft picks can be protected only for top 4 or top 14 plus selections. That's okay. I get that, top 4. Because you have picks now that we see when you have trades, you have top 6 protected, top 8 protected, things of that nature. So now they can only be top 4 or top 14 plus. All right. Lottery odds would freeze at the trade deadline or at a later date. Like I said, this particular article says that's pointless. I gave you my interpretation on that and how I think that teams might react and take things into consideration at that particular point, knowing our odds are frozen. This is where we're going to be, yada, 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 stuff like that. So, no longer allowing the team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes feels too drastic. How about can't do it 3 years in a row? That's what you should just say, right? Teams can't pick in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals. Like, that typically doesn't happen anyway. So, like, how and why would you just make that a guarantee? Like, that typically happens. It's usually a rare occurrence that a team that makes it to their conference finals turns around and the next year has a top 4 pick. Lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. Again, you could do that, but like I said earlier, you could do that and have some teams that have 2 years of horrible records, and then you decide to take away that top 4 pick that they might have had this year. And then now it's like, wait a minute, we just had that pick, so now we're not going to get it, but we got this as our record for over the last 2 years. So not sure how that one would work. Let's see. The lottery will be extended to include all play-in teams. You created the play-in for a reason. And I heard somewhere that Adam Silver mentioned that they want parity. What better way, in my opinion, I think, to have some parity? You have the 14 teams that don't make the playoffs, right? So add those teams that are in the play-in. Add them in. They were close, so add them in. It makes sense to me. And then flatten odds for all lottery teams. No, can't do that because all teams aren't the same. And you can't have it be the strong get stronger and the weak get weaker. You won't have parity, and you'll begin to lose people. You'll begin to lose fans and other things. All right. So again, we know how bad it is right now, but we also know that it's not going to be that bad every year. Like I said, we've seen how long ago was it when our Sixers were in the thing with Sam Hinkie, and then we had the Ben Simmons and all the other stuff there, right? How long ago was that? It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be as bad every year, right? There might be even years where you don't even realize that a team is tanking because they could mask it so well. All right. Let's see here. Getting more into this. I'm getting into this. I'm liking this conversation here. So most times your star, you either have to trade for them, sign them in free agency, or draft them, right? And a lot of times when you pick somebody in the draft, you know what we're doing. We're going on potential. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. The Philadelphia 76ers had few number 1 draft picks, right? And speaking of that, like ones that most people can remember. I'm not putting my guy in it because he's an exception, the standout of them all. Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, and I also think, I don't think he was a number 1, but he was a very high Michael Carter Williams. I think he just won Rookie of the Year. I don't think he was a number 1 pick. But talking about that, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz. Right? I had numerous conversations surrounding both of those players leading into the draft, coming out of high school, all the pre-draft reports and all the other stuff, right? And in the world of the NBA, and we're talking about tanking right now, right? So in the world of the NBA, at those particular moments, Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz, right? Those particular moments, those particular drafts. Sixers were fortunate enough to have the number 1 overall picks in both of those drafts, right? These two, in their respective draft, these two were the consensus All-American overall number 1 picks in the draft, right? What that means is if you have the number 1 pick, you taking this guy, Same Ben Simmons and Marco Fultz. You're taking this guy. This is the guy you take at number one. And I don't care whatever. You take this guy. Ben Simmons was the first one. Like I said, we're talking the most recent ones, right? Again, Ben Simmons. And again, like, this is no hate. I'm just trying to explain some things to you all. So again, in this world of the NBA, like I said, consensus All-American, consensus overall number one pick. At that particular time, in that moment, as the Sixers holding that number one pick, if they do not make that pick, they would be the laughingstock of the NBA. Just because it's the quote-unquote consensus overall number one pick. Like I said, in that situation, you kind of have to take that pick. And you hope that it pans out. Doesn't pan out all the time. Right? Ben Simmons started out really good. Right? Started out. And then we went through this stretch where it seemed like he had a lot more moments where he forgot how to play basketball as opposed to the moments where he was playing basketball. Apparently it got too heavy for him here. He was traded, yada, 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 things of that nature, right? Moving on to the Markelle Fultz. Again, same situation. Consensus overall number one pick. He came here, showed you some flashes, showed you some signs, and then all of a sudden he's got some kind of hitch in his shot, something's going on, and now he can't shoot correct. Went on and be traded, played a little bit better in Orlando, but now neither one of these two guys are in the NBA as far as I can remember. Neither one of these two guys are on an NBA roster right now. So, again, you tank, but then sometimes it's not always great to get that top pick or that number one pick unless there's enough talent. So apparently in this draft and everything, like I said, I've been hearing, in this draft there could be 3 potential number one picks. 3 potential players that could very easily go number one, which is a lot for a draft in a long time. You think and you wonder how a team's supposed to get better, right? Well, you have, at the NBA level, you have scouts and you have player development and all these assistant coaches and things of that nature, all these analytics and all of that, right? You have to pick guys who have the talent, the work ethic, and the character. Because most of these guys are going to be very young, right? They're even younger than they were in the past, but they're going to be very young. So it's going to be a lot to handle on both ends. It's going to be a lot to handle as an organization because you need this young man, very young man sometimes, to fit in if he's a very high draft pick. And on the other side, as the same token, that very young man, now I have just about everything I want at my fingertips. How do I maintain and stay focused on my job? Because now basketball is no longer a game to me. It's now my job. So you got to take all that into consideration. You have to do the work. You have to have your coaches, your staff, and everybody in the organization do your work. Perfect example. And you can say I'm biased and I'll eat it all day because I'm Philly all day. My guy, Tyrese Maxey. I think he was a number 11 pick. But look at what he has done so far in his young career. He's already a 2-time All-Star, 2nd-time All-Star. He's just an All-Star starter. He's leading the league in a lot of categories right now. He's actually put the Sixers on his back right now, with Joel Embiid being in and out and Paul George going through the suspension right now. So there are people who are saying that the Sixers, if they can get healthy in a consistent manner, and Paul George comes back conditioned, and he is allowed to be with the team and practice and everything. He just can't play in games. But anyway, he can come back and give us 15 points a night. Joel Embiid can come back the way he's been playing when he plays. A lot of people are saying that the Sixers are a team that a lot of teams will not want to play in the playoffs. That's another story. Getting back to this tanking thing, right? Again, I said about acquiring stars, right? You either draft them, trade for them, sign them in free agency. As far as trading for them, you usually have to give up some assets if you trade for a star. That's typical in the NBA. If you trade for a star, you're going to give up players and assets. All right. And depending on where that star is, depending on what kind of contract that star has, yeah, you know the rest, how teams are going to approach you. This is another proposal for the issue with tanking allegedly not being the NBA's biggest problem. All right. So this particular gentleman, this article, and I'll tell you who this was in a second. This article was written by SB Nation and Ricky O'Donnell. Right. He says that shortening the schedule could help. All right. He said the game right now is too physically demanding on players' bodies over the course of a regular season plus the playoffs. High school and college teams play about 40 games max a season. Usually a little less. He said 44 games in the WNBA right now, or currently. Europe powerhouse Real Madrid, 68, and that's between a couple of leagues, and their playoff period is shorter. Only the NBA makes its champion play 100 plus games per season. And they said the Thunder played 105 in their 2025 championship season. So last year they played 105 games. This is why they have injuries now. All right. He proposes trimming the season to 60 or 65 games, which could be an ideal number. And then load management is kind of pretty much out the window. All right. Tanking isn't much of a problem either now because fewer games to light on fire. All right. And the standings usually don't really change that much after the 60-game mark, which is arguably correct. That means every game would feel a lot more important, which is the main thing the NBA wants to establish. So that's a thought. And I think that's a good thought. Shorten the season. Again, you could kind of stagnate or even eliminate, like I said, the load management. And then that other piece where you don't have to worry about tanking as much because every game would be important because it's only 65. So every game would matter to some degree. Keeping that in mind, folks, just thinking about tanking, and I wanted to bring that to you all of what Adam Silver intends to try and do to fix tanking. It's not going to be easy. It is definitely going to be difficult to do because, like I said, it's just to the point where this season is just gotten really bad and slightly out of control. So now they feel like they need to step in and make some adjustments and do some things about it, which I see okay. But you got to be very strategic in how you do it because it's going to affect you as a whole anyway. All right. So moving right along, we also know that their sister league, WNBA, still going through their collective bargaining agreement talks, which are not going that great right now. Okay. The most recent proposal, this is weird, it's just funny, and it's funny just to hear us say this. No more super teams, and they want an $11.3 million supermax salary, which would take up 20% of the team's salary cap. So they're proposing an alleged massive pay jump with an average salary of $125K to $470K, with the minimum being $200. Yeah, you heard that correct. All right, with one star on the team, that star would take up 20% of the cap. If you had 4 stars on your team, you would take up 65% of your cap. The league proposed cap at $5.6 million per team, based on 70% share of net revenue, and then the union proposed a 9.5, 20% cap. All right, there was a Zoom meeting where agents stepped in, and agents kind of let the league know, like, listen, we are here for our clients. We are representing our clients, and there could very well be a strike. Okay, could very well be a strike. It could very well be a lockout in the WNBA. I don't want that to happen. I want these ladies to get back on the court and do what they do, because Unrivaled is going to end soon, and it's not a full year-round thing. It's not something that they do to make some extra money because of the situation with their collective bargaining agreement. Right. So, some more of the latest news. Right. We talk about that Zoom meeting. Right. The WNBA is given a March 10th drop dead date for a deal to get done and the league season to stay intact. So in this meeting, it was designed to keep the players not on the negotiating, not on the players that aren't on the negotiating committee. They would be in the Zoom meeting. They were in this Zoom meeting to be updated and kept up to speed as to what was going on. All right, it was a lot of passion, a lot of debate in that, and it got a little heated. Okay, all right, and they say, of course, we are going to disagree. It's bargaining, right? We're trying to make a deal. Some are trying to say that on the social media side that the players are collapsing. There was a rumor or something I saw out that some of the players have changed their minds in the stance of wanting to go on strike. Some of them are feeling like we can't afford to do that, right? Again, the agents took center stage, right? The agents are definitely asking for transparency and coordinated communication, according to ESPN. The letter from the agents read in part, and I quote, "Notably, there is an unprecedented level of unity among agents at this moment. The alignment reflects a shared commitment to doing what is best for players and the long-term health of the league. We believe that same spirit of collaboration, utilizing all available expertise and resources, is how we should continue working together as a team," end quote. So basically what they're saying is, listen, we are backing our clients, and y'all need to talk to us. We need full transparency in what you intend to do and what you are planning to do. Don't spoon feed us. Give it all to us, straight with no chaser. All right. Again, the agents they were asked about the players, rumors about striking, and they held up for their agents and said, no, we don't know anything about that. We're not going to talk about that, whatever. Let's see. What to make of all of this? Well, it's funny because these women, again, in my opinion, y'all know how I feel about the ladies of the WNBA. I'm hoping that there is not a strike. I'm hoping that something can get done. And I don't want it to be or come off as the Players Association settling. I'm just looking seriously. I don't want to see the players are folding. I don't like that word. I don't like that term because, again, this is their job now. And they have to make a living. We all remember the situation with Brittany Griner going overseas and playing. This is the reason that they started the Unrivaled League. And then there's another league. And there is a strong possibility, and I forget what that other league is called, but there are a lot of stars that have signed up for this subordinate league, not subordinate, this alternative league. And it kind of reminds you of the Live Golf and the PGA stuff, but I think this alternative league for the ladies is having it. It's going to have a lot more traction than Live had with, going back and forth with the PGA. So I don't want to see an WNBA strike, but again, you could possibly see with things being the way they are, and given this March 10th date, which is 8 days away now, you could see a lot more players defecting to this alternative league. The pay is better. Apparently, the foundation, as far as business side, executive side, is better. So we'll see. Again, like I said, I feel bad for these ladies. Like I've always felt bad, like for the simple fact, even that they had to go overseas when the WNBA season was over to continue to live the way that they live. It's definitely hard for them, but things were beginning to get better. And then we get here. And for whatever reason, right now we're kind of stuck and are having a hard time getting out of it. I hope that something, like I said, I hope that something can come out of it. I hope that these ladies can get what they're asking for, or if not, as close as possible to what they're asking for. Again, they have their agents' support. And the agents understand also that if these ladies go on strike, they don't get paid, and then we won't get paid. But they're fighting for their clients, and they're standing with their clients. Definitely support that. Can't do anything but support that. So I'm wishing them the best. Again, like I always say, I will keep my ear to the street. Any news I find out, I will definitely report it to you guys, either back on a show, in a segment, or on social media. I'll share some stuff as I see it. But again, I hope that these ladies work something out and can get something handled and continue on with the WNBA and no strike for this upcoming season. All right. Again, like we said, it is March. It's March the 2nd. But we all know, for me, like I tell you all the time, this is like my favorite time of the year, March Madness. And it's like that because ideally I can watch basketball. When the tournament starts, I can watch basketball all day for the days that the games are being played. I can watch basketball all day. Basketball games start at like 12 noon and they go till like 10, 11 o'clock at night. College basketball, March Madness. It is coming. The selection shows are March the 15th for the men and the women. All right? But just a little sneak peek. The top 16 overall seeds were revealed for the men's side. I didn't get the ones for the women's side. I got the ones for the men's side. All right. I'm going to go through them. I'm not going to give you the records. I wrote the records. So I'm not going to give you the records. I'm just going to go through the teams. And you'll know who the top 16 teams are. And then later on, we'll figure out who the 4 overall number 1 seeds are, and then all the rest. All right. So 1 through 16, Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Iowa State, UConn, Houston, Illinois, Purdue, Florida, Kansas, Nebraska, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Vanderbilt, and Virginia. All right. Again, like I said, the tournament selection show is March the 15th. So we are heading into conference tournaments very, very quickly. All right. The tournament schedule goes like this. So I'm going to give you the men's, and then the women's are like a day behind. So, well, one day and then the next day. Right? So they kind of overlap a little bit. So first 4 for the men is March 17th and 18th. First official round is the 19th and the 20th. Second round, 21st, 22nd. Sweet 16, 26th, 27th. The Elite Eight, 28th, 29th. Final four is April the 4th, and the men's title game is April the 6th. On the women's side, again, the first four, March 18th and 19th. First round, official first round, March 20th and 21st. Second round, 22nd and 23rd. Sweet 16, March 27th and 28th. Elite 8, March 29th and 30th. Final four, April the 3rd. And their title game is April the 5th. So, with that being said, folks, I hope I was able to give you all some insight on NBA tanking and how they intend to attack fixing it, again, if it can be fixed. We also talked a little bit about the WNBA collective bargaining agreement, which, again, coming off of a heated, passionate Zoom meeting, hoping for the best for those ladies. NCAA, again, March Madness is on the horizon. Stay tuned for that. You know how we do. I will go through the bracket once the teams have been selected and the bracket has been announced. We'll go through some of the teams, some of the regions, and talk about the teams that made it, some of the teams that are in the first four, some of the teams that might be on the bubble that did not get in. All of that jazz, you know how we do on the SportsRap podcast here. Again, thank you all for tuning in, even those of you who did not chime in and let me know you were there. I know some of y'all are still watching anyway. But again, March the 2nd, 2026, Monday afternoon. Don't forget, next weekend, time goes up, spring forward. All right, we're going to get that extra little bit of daylight, as a lot of you all like. And again, it's Monday, like I said. Be great on purpose. Get home safe. Be prepared for tomorrow morning. Again, like I told y'all earlier, they are calling for a winter watch, mixture of rain and snow. So there could be possibly some slippery spots out there. Again, be great on purpose, like I always say. Be great on purpose. Make sure you tap in. Make sure you follow at SportsRap CEO on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Make sure you check out the YouTube page, SportsRap TV on YouTube. You know what to do when you get there. You subscribe to the channel. Check out the videos. There's a ton of content over there. Check out the videos. Hit the thumbs up on the videos that you like, and then hit that bell so you'll be alerted when new content is uploaded. Also, be on the lookout. New web page is coming. All right. And as always, again, for my DJs out there, if you have mixes you want to get heard on the radio station, Heat 100 Radio, email dsg2266@gmail.com. Clean MP3 format. We can get your mixes played on Heat 100 Radio. All right. Also, if you are a business, black-owned business, any other business, fitness, sports, training, any kind of business, you want to do some advertising, I'm your guy. Hit my DM with the message for all the info. In that message, please add advertising, and we can talk about all of that. Make sure you are tuned in 24/7, heat100radio.airtime.pro. All right, that is our new handle. 24 hours, you can hear some music. If you are a DJ, you can lock in when you send me your mixes and hear your mixes. You can hear some mixes from some of our great DJs who have already sent us mixes. And you can also get replays of myself, the Sports Rap Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Peace. Talk to y'all all week on social media, right back here on Monday.